I don't know. Are we taping now?
Just
Wow. The first part of it might be really bad.
You can always catch up
Yeah, no,
the bad bits.
Okay, so we do the questions. Basically, I finished filming now. So I've been working on a new Marvel film, which has been really, really good fun. But it has been absolutely. I mean, every film is hard work, but the locations have been quite extreme on this, if you like. You know, we've been really kind of sort of the whole team has really worked incredibly hard. However, that said, most of the stunts have been live stunts. I'm still not allowed to sort of like tell you exactly what it is, partly because we're taping this. It's crazy. But it will be a very good film. And we're going to go through some questions, and then you guys are going to ask me some questions. Okay, right, first one. I'm really bad at these. I'm not sure, I just have casual chats. How have you achieved a healthy work and life balance? How have we done that, Kit? There's a few questions on here. So the first one is how have you achieved a healthy work and life balance? It's kind of, I don't know if I have, to be honest. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, I guess I have, but I've, you know, and I hate doing this whole thing of, you know, I am a single mum in an industry where I've just had to make it kind of work, and I definitely, you know, I embrace that challenge, but I've had a really good network of people around me. Is basically how you make it work, and you know, for as far as the kids sort of growing up, I had the most amazing girl that used to live with us, Kathy, who's still a really dear, she's like my daughter now, and she used to basically lived with me from when my kids were babies, and you know, she used to sort of like bring them out to wherever I was and things. I'm really fortunate, but I think because I was the designer, even when I had my kids, I was a designer, so you know, people are asking me to do the work for their, you know, for their own motives, if you like. You know, it is hard. All I can say is the only way you can deal with that. It's a really tricky question for the first question. The only way you can deal with it is by having really, really a good supportive network of friends and family around you, and that's kind of how you'll make it work. And to be honest, it's that sort of thing of just being able to, you know, knowing when you have to say no to work. You know, the hardest thing is the first couple of years of your career is getting yourself kind of known in the industry and things. But you know, you can never, like unforeseen events, you're never gonna know what is gonna happen, and you just have to kind of deal with it when it comes up. There's no right or wrong way, and there's no, I've got no answer that makes it, oh, this is what we do, this happens. You know, it's like if you decide that you want to start a family, you know, you can't keep saying, oh, I'll do it after this film, I'll do it after this film. You know, I've got two of my team have sort of recently become pregnant. And this is quite a hard industry to kind of introduce your family sort of world into. And I kind of remember back in the day when I was pregnant with my first boy, Stan, and I literally there was no help whatsoever. I mean, I know you can get kind of sort of like bits of help with the government now, but I mean, it's nothing that will sustain you through a pregnancy and the first sort of few months of motherhood. As a freelance worker, you know, as a freelance worker, it's kind of quite, you know, you have to sort of have a bit of savings in the bank to dip into and things. And I do remember when I was first sort of pregnant with Stan, I was lucky enough that once he was born, I was sort of prepping, I was working with Mike Lee, and we knew we was doing Topsy-Turvy further down the line, and because it was Victorian and because of how he works. His producer, Simon Channing Williams, who's sadly no longer with us, but was very fundamental in the shaping of how I wanted myself to become. He was just like, you know, very aware that financially I couldn't survive, you know, and he was just like, I'm going to put you on a small retainer, you know, to sort of do research on Victorian London things, you know, whilst you're having your maternity leave and that, which was great. And other than that, I ended up taking a loan. Anyway, the very, very long story short, is that I kind of sort of made a vow to myself at that time that if and when I was sort of designing, sort of, I would, and if any of my team were having kids and things, you know, that I would make it much easier than what I found it when I was pregnant. And which is kind of what I've done. You know, I've got 2 of my team at the moment that are due to have, that are just the very early stages of pregnancy. And I'll drop them into the crowd room and sort of make sure that they're kind of getting a bit of money coming in, and then they can go off and have their babies, and then just they'll contact me when they're ready to come to work, and I'll drop them back into the crowd room to do a few days here and there. Listen, that's great because they're my sort of like long-term teams. Do you know what I mean? I kind of wish there was an easier way of doing that. But anyway, very long rant of how to make a healthy work and life balance. I don't think I have, but I try to. What was the moment you proved to yourself that you were capable to achieve more than you initially thought? I don't think there's been a moment on that really. I think if that's the case, I'll kick up my heels and relax, and I don't. How do you make contacts and become part of the industry? Again, I mean, these are kind of these are, I have to say, sort of questions that are very hard to answer because they're relative to the individual person. You know, a lot of it is about your personality. Oh, can you see okay there? Do you need to pause?
Yeah.
A lot of what we do is very no matter how great you are at what you do as a trainee, a lot of it is about your personality and whether you're fitting into the team. It's, you know, the people that will stand out to me, which I know will be one of the next questions in here, so I'll preempt it. You know, what I look for in a trainee is somebody who, you know, obviously we're going to tell them what to do for the first week or so, but I expect people to be very much on the ball as to preempt what is needed next. Do you know what I mean? It's like once you've told your trainee what to do for the first sort of like week, there's a repetitiveness that you know, as an individual, you're going to keep doing the things you've been told you have to do, and you're going to realise that there are other things you can do as well, you know, that make the whole thing flow. Just you know what I mean? It's about having the incentive to not always wait to be told what to do, but to preempt what to do to make the working day easier for the rest of the team. You know, I mean, it really is. As a trainee, you're a very valuable member of the working team because we rely on our trainees so heavily to run the show. And what I'll try to do before you guys finish is I'll try to bring in a couple of my guys that have been trainees on jobs before. What I find is really useful for you guys is to talk to trainees that have gone through a few films, not necessarily with me, but and then you can, and the questions that you're asking are much better answered by them because they've been through it much fresher. I'm seeing it as a designer's point of view, and what I have to say is that there's very, like, even when you guys come out on works experience, you know, I'll do your reviews with you, but quite often I'm so busy designing a film and doing everything, I won't be telling you what to do. You know, my team will be telling you what they're expecting you to do, or, you know, the crowd supervisor, or actually we've actually got Simone out on the next one, so she'll be managing you guys and working out when you're coming backwards and forwards and things, so she'll kind of have a little rota of what she expects you to do when you come out on works experience. What's this one? I know. She's my little mirror. What would you say is a good price to charge for makeup photo shoots as a beginner? It kind of depends on what you will get out of it. Back in the day when I was putting together a portfolio, the whole idea is that a tear sheet, which is kind of a picture that you'll get from the photographer, is what you would get as payment. Now I've kind of got an interesting situation coming up where I'm going off on a photo shoot with an actor that I've just been working with, and it's for like an Italian Vogue magazine, for the cover of that, and they pay really ridiculously bad money, and I mean mean, I'm getting 300 for the day on that, which is actually a lot. Usually they don't even pay. I've done a Vogue shoot before, cover shoot, where I got 50 quid, but you get the Vogue cover with your credit on, which for you guys is invaluable. Do you know what I mean? It's really good. So you've got to weigh up the pros and cons. You know, what I don't want you guys to do is, if you're going out to do a job and it's going to benefit you, for the first year or so of your careers, I don't, you know, as long as you're getting something that is really beneficial to your careers, I don't want you to be swayed by whether or not, you know, I mean, even if you get jobs through us, we'll always try to get at least expenses paid. If it will get you a contact, it is kind of how this industry works. You know, you kind of sort of like go out and you kind of sort of, you make your contacts and then they kind of ask you to come back, and then you start getting, your pay starts going up and things. So it's a bit of a hard question to answer, because, like I say, you know, I did a Vogue shoot, I was paid 50 quid, I'm doing an Italian Vogue shoot and I'm getting paid 300, you know, and they're really kind of sort of like, that's really squeezing their budget as far as they're concerned. Do you know what I mean? Because you know, because I'm getting a credit and everything on it. And I'm actually doing it because I absolutely adore the actor that I'm doing it with. I wouldn't usually do that. I'd usually pass it over to one of my team to do it. What do you find most difficult about the TV and film industry? That ties into the work-life balance thing, really. It's trying to kind of sort of make sure that, you know, throughout my kids' lives, I've just sort of tried to make sure that when I'm at home, I'm mum, basically. And one of the things that I do find difficult about the TV industry and the film industry is that you give up your life for whatever time. I mean, this film that I've just been doing has been so all-consuming. I mean, usually I'd have been in to see you guys on a much more regular basis. I'd have been here on the first day in, you know, to say hi to everybody. But I've literally, you know, we've been in Salisbury, we've been in Dover, we've literally been everywhere that is, you know, ironically is internet unfriendly. And I do struggle with that. Do you know what I mean? I struggle with kind of sort of being out, that whole thing of just like when you're doing a film, it's a bit like training for a marathon. You literally, your whole social life and everything, just like that, you're on the film for, you know, X amount of months. You know, what you guys might find, and this is like a really off the record chat, even though we're filming it, it's kind of quite hard. If any of you don't come, were any of you born into this industry?
In what sense?
Do you have family in the industry?
Oh, yes, but on the front of the camera side.
Oh, okay. One of the things that's really really difficult in this industry is the getting your friends to understand that you've gone off the radar for a little bit, okay? And when you talk to, like, you'll know, because you've got family in the industry. Either side of the camera is as hard work, either side of the camera, it really is. But there's a certain thing where it's kind of sort of, you know, your friends are just, you can see your friends like dropping off. And it's like, ooh, when you finish, it's just like, okay guys, I'm ready to go out, And they're just like, oh, well, we called you and you didn't call back, we've called you 5 times. You're just like, you will find there is a little bit of a friend filter that will happen. But do you know what, can I tell you, your good mates, you know, will always be there for you. But you know, it is one of the things that I would say, a lot of people, if they don't work in this industry and do 9 to 5 Monday to Friday jobs, very much don't understand when we suddenly, you know, are away for weeks on end. And you also, you love your film family. Do you know, if you often do a film, you know, you absolutely love your film family, because you're living and breathing with them every day for like sort of 4 months, 5 months, however long. That said, you know, we're not all just training just to work in films, and you have to remember that. You know, there are other ways of using your skills that you're learning here. You don't have to just sort of want to do films. What is the one item in your kit with you couldn't live without? What was the one item in your kit that you couldn't live without? Probably my scissors. Yeah. Yeah. I love my scissors. I love my set bag as well. It sounds really mad, but I do love my set bag. I'll bring my set bag in one day and introduce you to my set bag. And just to show you the things that I keep in the set bag. You know, there's certain things that are really sort of essential that you should always keep with you. What we tried to do when we was putting together your kit bag at the start, that little dermacolor palette that you've got, the K9, whatever it's called, is essential. You know, a lot of, that's what I was trying to do by giving you a set bag that is useful for you as a trainee. Do you know what I mean? It's like the grease palette. We still use that all the time. So a lot of the things that you've got are really good kit bag stuff. But I will bring in my kit bag. Next time I come in, I'll bring in my kit bag and we'll go through it and have a little poke through. And there's like eye drops in there. There's mattifiers. It's tiny. But you have to remember, I kind of usually just look after one person. I keep looking at this makeup here, I think it's slightly wonky. I don't know whether it's off-center or something. What qualities do you look for in your trainees? Right, we have ticked off that box, and I will just reiterate what I look for is ideally I want you to drive, but what I look for is it's really for me about sort of personality. I don't want anybody, especially on the main bus, I can't have anybody too loud. I need to know that people are getting on with things. Being a trainee on a main bus is very different to being a trainee in a crowd room. On a main bus, when you're kind of sort of, the energy you give off is essential, and it's got to be quite neutral. Do you know what I mean? It's like one thing you sort of like realise when you're working with actors, especially, you know, obviously, you know, big actors, you know, come with their own kind of sort of like things and that. But what I will say about pretty much every actor, A-lister or no A-lister, is that they, what makes them actors is that their ability to feel energy in the room. Do you know what I mean? They will grab, you know, actors, don't underestimate them. Is what I'm going to say, right? They're really flipping. You know, they can interpret everything, and they you know, their whole job is mimicking. And you know, if you're on the main bus, and you're slightly kind of sort of like that, you know, the actor will immediately sense that. Do you know what I mean? So on my makeup bus, there's a reason why I always keep my main team the same. Really, I very rarely kind of sort of bring new people into my main core team, and a lot of that is because I kind of just need to know that I can focus on what the actor needs to be that day. So what was that? What should look for in trainees? That's what I look for in trainees. I personally look for sort of like a really good energy and the fact that you fit in with the team. And that you're preempting things to do. I mean, like I'm repeating what I've said, I wouldn't be telling you what to do, but who is your favourite director you've worked with and why? Well, I famously have two favourite directors, although I do quite like JC Chandler, who I've just worked for. He's pretty special. And my favourite director would always be Mike Leigh, because he's so significant in my world. This is Mike up here on the wall. I did my first ever film with him, and I would love to say I did my last film with him, but you know, he hasn't. We're still waiting to see if we can do another film, which I hope we can. Fingers all crossed for that. The reason I love Mike is because he's taught me so much about actors and what actors do and what they bring to the table and character work and everything. He's also taught me to be respectful of what everybody does in the industry, and basically he's been kind of my sort of like mentor throughout my life. And I love the fact that he works without a script, so it's all character based. So Mike Leigh will always be very significant in my world. And the other director, obviously, is Guy, who will be here. Because he is totally the fucking opposite of mine. Which I love, do you know what I mean? It's like, he is just like, you know, he's got a certain way that makes his films unique to him. He gives it the Guy Ritchie touch and the Guy Ritchie bit of magic. As does Mike. So those are my two favourite directors, but like I say, JC, who I've been working with, I I'm very fond of. Was that the last one? Oh, how different do you think it is for someone older to enter this industry? I don't think there's really an age limit on it. I think sometimes with age comes a sort of maturity that ticks all of the above boxes that I was talking about. I don't think anyone's too old to start a new career, and I think that this is such a bonkers career that I think as long as you're good at it. One of my girls, Christina, started in her late 40s and is doing very well. Just things happened in her life that meant she, needed to get on with something that was different, and she didn't want to do the rest of her life doing what she was doing, and she changed it, and she's made it work for her. And we've had a lot of older students come through, and the majority of them have done well. So I think age is pretty irrelevant, really. I think the one thing that probably the older student finds is going back to learning is quite an odd thing, because you're so used to, you've either brought up kids or you've either done a lot of jobs where you've been quite in charge. How do you cope with stressful situations? Just breathe and put my head down and get on with it, really. That's my job as a head of department, is I have to make sure that it doesn't get. I try to live it in the bubble when it's stressful. They're getting smaller. How did you begin your career in the industry? I was a hairdresser first and foremost, and I kind of sort of moved on from being a hairdresser. I had a hairdressing salon. I used to do a lot of rock bands, and then I did a makeup course, not similar to one we're doing now. And then I carried on doing bands. I used to do The Cure. Do you know The Cure? Everybody likes The Cure. The Cure. Yeah, I used to do their pop videos, and I used to work for pop. I did a lot of pop videos before I went into TV and film. But I used to travel with bands quite a lot back in the punk days. What made you want to be a makeup artist? I don't think I ever really sat down and thought, I'll be a makeup artist. It was more. I do come from quite a bonkers sort of like childhood. If I didn't earn money, I didn't really eat. So I didn't, and I'm not. I hate that. It's another one of those things. You kind of sort of. It's so easy to say that nowadays, and it's just like, you've got a story, but I don't really have a story. It's just that's kind of how people. It was a very different world. I mean, I'm 60. Do you know what I mean? It's like it was a very different world when I was like sort of 15. To what it is today. Do you know what I mean? It's like I always joke with my kids, sort of saying that I've accidentally made them middle class, and I think I have. But I'm kind of quite proud of that. Do you know what I mean? It's like they don't have to go through. It's a lot easier for them than what it is. What is the biggest challenge for a makeup? What is the biggest challenge for a makeup artist? I think the biggest challenge, guys, is just kind of making, when you've got all of your teachers in, teachers, it's like all of your teachers are going to show you their way of doing things. What you guys are going to do is you're going to kind of sort of like, this is another thing about being an older person when you're retraining actually, because when I retrained for makeup, I'd already owned a hairdressing salon and I'd always been my own boss. So it's kind of quite a hard one to suddenly be told by somebody different how to hold scissors and things, because I was flipping born with scissors in my hand. Do you know what I mean? I was like, I was cutting my horses, flipping doing dogs and horses and God knows what from the age of flipping 5. So, for somebody to sort of suddenly say to us, actually, if you hold them like this, and we'd like you to use longer scissors, I was like, wow. But one of the things that I sort of realised when I kind of went back having had my own business and then kind of retraining to do makeup, it's that thing that I kind of had to really adjust my headspace and kind of just sort of think, do you know what? Even if I don't agree with what this teacher is telling me, and I can kind of see a shortcut to doing it, what I have to respect is that this teacher really is flipping good at what they're doing and they're established and everything, so you're learning everything you can from them. And then further down the line, you might be able to kind of sort of drag your own little bits out of it, and you kind of, you know, the thing about what you guys want to do and what is your challenge is making yourself unique to you. So, like for me, there's a reason why I get asked to go and design films. So you're a long way off that, right? You don't want to design films. Maybe you never want to design films, right? I tell you, designing films, right, is a flipping headache sometimes because a lot of what you're doing is you're literally like making sure that you're the mediator between the studio, the director, the producers, the actors, and everything. Do you know what I mean? And sometimes I watch my team having so much more fun doing, you know, just doing looks that I told them to do. Do you know what I mean? And you know, they're getting paid not much less than what I'm getting paid anyway, but I'm doing all of the, you know, I'm doing the management thing of it. So anyway, your biggest challenge is to make yourselves unique and putting your stamp on it. You know, you want to be that person, either just with the one little name or something. What's been your favourite job you've done? There's a lot of things. Don't click. Sorry, I've got really. So there's just something you've got. I've got a really oversensitive hearing, so I can't do chewing or anything. But I do that as soon as I hear a noise. I'm like, ooh, something else. What's been your favourite job you've done? I've got a few favourite jobs. Full Monty will always be really close to my heart. And Topsy Turvy, obviously, everything that I've done with Mike is really, really close to my heart. But in any film, you know, when I go to sort of watch a film, this is usually one of the questions that I get is, you know, can you just go and watch a film without, you know, if I can go and watch a film and just enjoy it as a story, then I've then it's worked. Tell us about a time you've had a problem on set. What happened and what did you do to resolve the issue? I don't know, have I told you the time? It's like I was literally in Thailand and we ran out of hair for laying on the actors, and it was actually on the stunt team, Jackie Chan's stunt team, and we did end up kind of clipping hair off of the goat and obviously washing it and laying it on. You're doing facial hair next week, so you'll be taught how to lay on hair. And you kind of like facial hair, right? Is to do it right is an absolute art form, and really, when they're teaching you how to lay on facial hair, really pay attention, because you can make a scraggly beard, which you'll probably end up with in a crowd room, look fantastic, because the scraggly beard will give you the foundation of the beard, and then you'll lay on over the top of it, and that's what makes it all work. But that's probably been the hardest. The hardest challenge is, you know, everybody's sort of like, especially when you come into this industry, you kind of sort of think, I want to travel, I want to do all of this. Do you know what? When you travel and you do a film in another country, same shit, different country, what you've got to remember, right, is that one of the first things that I ever get people to do whenever we're filming abroad, go to the local supermarket, find out if where we can buy gelatine, where you can buy like canned coffee, where you can buy all of the things. Like you have to, when you're doing casualty, and I'm hoping Steph or one of the girls can teach you casualty, and they're really good. But one thing that I used to sort of set this challenge of like sort of, I used to, when my kids were at school, I used to do a film club at their school, and I used to like make all these kids do horror films. And they had a budget of like sort of £10 to bring everything in. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, when you guys finish here, right, you will learn much more on a low budget film than what you will ever learn on a big budget film. Because you will learn how to make blood from the local pawn shop. And you will learn how to make all of the things that you need to do. So when I was in the graduate, it's not one of those things that, another story like the head of the goat. Another story is I was in Nicaragua doing Carla's song with Ken Loach, and he sort of said to me, oh, with this actor, I need this actor. It was all to do with the war between the Sandinistas and the Contras, and it was like, absolutely a really hard, brutal film to do. And he was just like, oh, I need this guy to look like he's been burnt. I wanted to look burnt head to toe. And I was in the middle of Nicaragua on my own with a couple of local people. And the local people were a couple of dancers that had found me that liked doing makeup. Do you know what I mean? I was just like, oh. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was like, can you just, I need all of their face burnt and everything. I'm just like, okay. So anyway, we went to the local shop and we got loads of gelatine, like that you cook with. Right, which is one of the best things for doing burns that I've ever found. And it's basically gelatin. You should get some and play about with it when you're doing casualty. Basically what you do is you melt the gelatine and obviously wait for it to not be scalding hot, and then you paint it onto the skin, and then you get the hair, you stretch the skin, you get the hair dryer on it, and then you do that and it all cracks. And then what you do is you just dab a little bit of red gel. Or, because I didn't have much red gel, what would I have used from the corner shop?
Red jelly?
Red food colouring.
Red food colouring. Food colouring is brilliant, absolutely brilliant for anything like that. Camp coffee is really good for sort of like making up blood with food colouring, with syrup, with you know all sorts of things to give it a little bit of texture and things. You know what you should do, just as a little test, when you're doing casualty, when you're opening up something that says gloopy blood or scabby scab, what you should be doing is going, do you know what, I'm going to take a little bit of that and I'm going to work out how to make that like that. Okay, because I swear to God, it will be invaluable. In our crowd rooms, when we're dirtying people down, I still, I'm going to ask the questions here, but in crowd rooms, when we're dirtying people down, well, I do not go out and buy Dirty Works, right? Because Dirty Works, the spray, or your Skin Illustrator, your Dirt Skin Illustrator, Grime, basically those pallets cost like 60, 70 quid. Your Dirt Works spray dirt costs 20 quid, is it always about 16, 20 quid? And you're making 100 people dirty in the morning, right? It's a no-brainer. You've got to work out how to make dirt. So, what we do in the crowd room, and what I quite often end up using this thing is we get loads of containers that we obviously reuse and reuse. And we used to go to Toys R Us, because that's the easiest place to go and get powder paint, kiddies paint, anything to do with kids will be hypoallergenic. It's a really, it's a really simple way of looking at things. So we'd get powder paints, go to Boots and get the cheapest moisturiser, or Salon Services, get the cheapest moisturiser you can buy, just gallons of it, and literally make up a vat of like Nivea. Nivea's great, mix it up with a little bit of brown powder paint, black powder paint, a bit of cream, muck, make it a muck colour, and then it'll just work it into hands and it'll look really lovely, really well. Dirtying down is one of the hardest things to learn how to do properly. If I get a chance between now, I'm prepping for it pretty much throughout the summer, so hopefully what I do is when you're doing boot camp, I'll come in and I'll do a quick dirtying down, how I like it done, because there's a Victorian way of dirtying down that I really like to do, which I'm quite specific about.
Is that with the tights? The colour and tights?
That's kind of dusting down, so I always do that with the dusting, yeah. But it's that thing of grinding it into the skin, like really making it look like it's dirty. What else do we make a lot of? We make a lot of that. We make a lot of goop for hair, which is just conditioner with oil in it, baby oil and things, for making hair look lank and greasy and things. What should be the way forward for someone who is doing a 3-week course? Who's doing a 3-week course?
And there was another student.
Oh, okay. It sort of depends on. It's too generic a question really to answer, because we need to kind of just sort of like sit down and just sort of like say, what is it that you're here doing the hair, but you do makeup.
I'm not doing the hair module. I just did the 3-week complete makeup TV and course, and now I'm joining in again for prosthetics.
Okay, but I'd have to know what you're intending to get to at the end of it. And I think it's a bit unfair sort of doing it in front of everybody, because it's because time is very much running out. Really. But we could definitely. So how much longer are you here for?
I'm here for another 6 weeks.
Yeah, we'll sit down and we'll have a chat towards the end of it, and then we can go over that more in depth. Last one, and it's back to Sharon.
She's over. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, Sharon. Hiya, you alright?
Hi.
Sorry, I've kind of popped you. You can come closer if you want.
Oh, sorry, I was just doing
Are
something.
you alright?
I'm
You're doing
listening.
admin?
I am listening in now. It's really
Oh.
interesting.
If you could go back in time and give yourself advice as a trainee, what would it be? I wouldn't. I absolutely wouldn't. Partly because I kind of, even when I made mistakes, I learned a great deal from them. You'll make a lot of mistakes, guys. You really will. And I'll tell you what's interesting. My kids are trainees at the moment. My youngest is working with the Dents, which they supply horses to the film industry. He's animal obsessed. Luckily, Kit. She's crossed the legs over there. Alright, I'll just be casual now, do you know what I mean?
The most stupid dog I've ever seen. She keeps looking at me like she's really in deep thought.
But no, what's really interesting now is that one of my sons is working for the Dents, which is kind of the animal handlers in films, so they supply animals to films. And he is working more hours than what I've ever worked. He literally leaves work at like 3, 4 in the morning, goes out, gets the animals, gets horses from the yards, boxes them all up, takes them onto film sets, does the filming for the day, takes them back to the yard, settles them down for the night, gets in about 9 o'clock at night. And a part of me as a mum is just like, your hours are too long. And then the other part of me is just like, fuck it, I did it. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, there's a, you know, my other son who's a camera trainee, you know, I managed to get him a couple of days, totally accidentally on the Nevers, and then after that, I was just like, all I'm ever going to do is give you one opportunity, all I can do is get you a meeting or a phone call, you know. But what happened on the Nevers one day is he had been, he had sort of studied to be a camera trainee. He used to work with Alison, who's around the corner, who's the most amazing documentary filmmaker. But he used to work with her for a good few years. He had the discipline of doing really long hours because they work much more than what we do for nothing. So he lived with her in Belfast for a couple of years, sort of training to sort of do camera work in the documentary world. And then he went and studied camera work down in Cornwall, and then he basically, I was at work one day and one of the trainees didn't come in because of COVID, and I just, like, the cameraman was sort of telling me, oh, we're down a camera, and I was just like, oh my god, my son's just done a course, and he was like, oh, I've got him to come in, and I was just like, do you know what, I can't tell him because it's against my principles. Do you know what I mean? This is like, you know, he has to, what I'll do is, if it's okay, I'll give him your number and he'll have to call you, because it's, you know, how you sort of like address people. Like, you don't want your mum to be telling you to be getting you a job. You really don't. They might get you one job, you know, but you don't want to say, oh, I got this job because there's my mum over there, she's the HOD of hair and makeup. Do you know what I mean? I'm just like, he wouldn't even talk to me. But anyway, he came in for one day. But then after that, I was just like, after that, you now sort of prove yourself that, you know, as long as you're, you know, and I was really proud of him because I you know, apart from the fact he didn't talk to me. But every time I saw him, he was walking about with like sort of, you know, teas and coffees and lunches and things. And I know that sounds, you know, but you kind of working your way up through the industry is the best way to understand how this industry works. Okay? Right guys, that's probably it for today because I've already cut into 15 minutes of Sharon's time.